Welcome to the Superhero Cinephiles podcast. I'm your host, Perry Constantine, and I'm here with a quick reaction of Spider-Man Brand New Day. I just left the theater, and so I'm going to split this up into two parts. First part will be spoiler-free, so if you don't want to know what happens, but you're curious about what I thought about the movie in general, then keep listening, and you'll be fine. And then I will do a second part where I talk a little bit more about spoilers, and in that case, I will very clearly say when I'm going to start the spoiler talk. So if you're nervous, don't worry. I will give you plenty of opportunity to stop the feed as soon as the spoilers are about to begin. Okay, so overall impressions. I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's a much more street-level Spidey movie for the most part. We get to see it covers the first like 10, 15 minutes or so. It covers basically in kind of rapid succession all of the past 4 years that Spidey's been up to. So that's where we see him facing off against Scorpion, Tombstone, Boomerang, The Hand. All of that happens in just that first part. So it's not actually overstuffed with villains like the trailer might have had you believe. We do get to see Ned and MJ back, of course, as we saw in the trailers. Some really good stuff with there. I will talk more about that in the spoiler section. But overall, great interactions with them. There was wonderful scenes between Spidey and MJ, and also a really great scene between Spidey and Ned, which we kind of get hinted at in one of the trailers when the Spidey tracker is going off, and it turns out Spidey is in the apartment. And again, I'll talk more about that in the spoiler section. Punisher. We got a lot of Punisher. I was surprised. I thought he would have had a much smaller role, but Jon Bernthal actually had a pretty meaty role in this. It was basically, the equivalent of, even more so than, I'd say any of the other team-ups that we've had in these movies so far. I thought he had more screen time, definitely, than Downey did in Homecoming. Pretty sure he had more screen time than Jackson did as the Skrull Nick Fury in Far From Home, and also definitely probably about the combined screen time that we got from Toby and Andrew in No Way Home plus Doctor Strange. That's probably about what we get with Frank. So there's a lot of Frank Castle in this movie. Banner and the Hulk, not a whole lot. It's basically just two big scenes with him, and it's very well done in both cases. They don't really explain why he is not the Smart Hulk anymore, though, so I was kind of surprised about that. And also another thing that they don't explain is what's Peter doing for money. I saw one theory on Reddit saying that maybe he's living off life insurance after May's death in No Way Home. Maybe she had a trust fund set up or something like that. I don't know, but my theory is that maybe he's doing freelance web design or app design or stuff like that, since we always see him in his small apartment. He's got all this computer tech there, so I don't think it's such a leap to say that maybe he's just doing like freelance tech work, whatever he can find it, is kind of what my theory is with that. But they don't mention it one way or the other. No mention of Jameson or the Bugle or anything like that, so none of that stuff is in there. Let's see, what else? Oh, the action. The action was phenomenal. Like, I think this was, of all the Spider-Man movies, like, I would not label this my favorite of the Spider-Man movies, of the Holland bunch, but when it comes to the action, definitely. I thought the action in here was a step above everything else. I mean, not really that surprising. Destin Daniel Cretton, who directed this one, he also directed Shang-Chi, so think about the action we saw in that movie. We get a lot of really cool stuff in this. Some incredibly well-executed scenes. Like, he does some amazing camera work with the fight scenes, and Spidey really came alive in those fight scenes, I felt. So that stuff was all really well done. Overall, like I said, I really liked it. I really thought that it kind of it felt like more of a mature Peter Parker. I mean, obviously this is, 4 years after high school, so that's to be assumed, but the kind of shaggy hair look for him, it was really worked for him. A lot of time in the Spidey math, there was a lot more emphasis in this movie about how, he has to keep his identity hidden, and I really like that we're getting back to that aspect of it, including in some very, very amusing situations. There is a cameo I was not expecting in this, and I will talk about that in the spoiler section, so if you want to be surprised, pleasantly surprised like I was, then, don't worry, I'm not going to spoil it for you. Okay. Ranking of the Holland movies. I think I would... This is tough. I still, even though I like this a lot, and as I said, in terms of action, it would definitely be number one with a bullet. But in terms of overall movie, I still think Homecoming is my favorite. Homecoming really managed to nail that idea of, this is a high schooler who is a superhero. I really felt that it did an excellent job of capturing that, translating those themes in the same way like Buffy turned high school into a horror movie. Spider-Man Homecoming did with turning high school into a superhero movie. So that whole idea of my favorite scene so far in any Spider-Man movie is still that scene when Adrian is driving Peter and Liz to the dance, and he discovers that he realizes in that moment that Peter is Spider-Man, and just like Michael Keaton's performance in that, the way Tom Holland reacts to him, it sends chills down my spine every time I watch it. So that is still like my favorite Spider-Man scene in any of these movies. And I think one of the great things about what that scene did was it really took that idea of superhero as a high school movie, or high school as a superhero movie, and they really made it work. So this whole idea, like you're terrified of your girlfriend's dad, you're terrified, you're feeling all this anxiety at the fact that, her dad is like grilling you about your intentions for his daughter and all that, being the overprotective dad thing. And then you make it that he is the supervillain, too. That was just a stroke of brilliance. I absolutely love that in that movie. So, Homecoming, still my favorite of the Tom Holland movies. But this one would probably be number two. This would be a very, very close second, right? I really, really liked it. I thought that a lot of the plot holes we had in No Way Home, which as much fun as that movie is, I think the plot holes do weaken it and become more visible over time. That kind of lowers that movie down a peg for me. And Far From Home, I like it. It's a solid film, but it's just not my favorite. I just like the others more. So yeah, I think I would put Brand New Day probably number two, and very, very close second in my rankings of all the Spider-Man movies, the Tom Holland ones. If you're asking me to do the work in the Tobey and the Andrew ones, I'd have to think about that a little bit more. Okay, so that is all for... Oh, one more thing, and this is not a spoiler, but it's about the post-credit scene, and I'll tell you what the post-credit scene is in the spoiler section. But I will just say, yes, there is a post-credit scene. There is not a mid-credit scene. So after the film credits, there is no mid-credit scene, nothing like that. And then there is a small post-credit scene, very, very small, very, very quick. It's not a big deal, but it does kind of set up things that'll probably be happening in either Doomsday or Secret Wars. But I will say that one thing to keep in note is that post-credit scene is literally post-credits, like all the way at the end, after the movie studio, after the music stops, and we have the movie studio logos, then we get that scene. So it's very, very at the absolute tail end of the movie. So keep that in mind if you're sitting in the theater and you're wondering where that scene is. You hear the music stop, you see those logos come up. Don't leave. There's something short right after that. So just sit in the theater, wait until the very, very end when the lights come on, and you'll be good to go. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about spoilers. So please, if you don't want to be spoiled by anything of the movie, then you should stop the episode now, because I'm going to start spoiler talk in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. All right, spoilers. First off, the rumors are true. Sadie Sink is playing Jean Grey. I was kind of disappointed about that, to be honest. I thought one of the cool things about Jean in the comics is that she's not like the other X-Men in that she has, she's a runaway, she's an orphan or anything like that, but she has a stable, more or less stable family, right? She's got parents, she has a sister, she has this extended family out there. Of course, her sister dies in the comics later on, but she does have this, more or less stable family unit that supports her. And I thought that was a nice little aspect of that in the comics, plus the fact that her her father was, I believe he was colleagues with Professor X, and that's how her father knew to bring Jean to go see Professor X when she was young, and so they had that established relationship from when she was a child. I really like that aspect, and that seems like it's going to be gone in the MCU's X-Men films, because here, her daughter, her sister is her older sister in this. I think it was her younger sister in the comics. But her sister is also a telepath. Her sister also has psychic powers, and what kind of sets Jean off on this is her sister is kidnapped. Both her and her sister are they're left behind by their mother. Their mother, it's not explained exactly, just says that she left them because of the powers the girls had. And Sarah is kind of training Jean how to use her powers and all that. And then what happens is she gets captured by Damage Control. And the director of Damage Control, William Metzger, he is from this is a very deep cut. It's from a Joe Casey limited series called X-Men Children of the Atom. Really cool miniseries that's set in it's set like before X-Men #1, I believe. It's like it's like Professor X gathering the original 5 X-Men together. And William Metzger is a human bigot in that comic. Great comic, and Steve Rude did excellent artwork on it. If you can find it, I definitely recommend it. It's worth a read. You guys know from the episode when Mike was on and we talked about Wildcats version 3.0, I am a huge Joe Casey fan, so obviously take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, it's a good series. It's one of those series that made me a fan of Casey to begin with. So check it out if you can. Anyway, so he is the villain. That's who Trammell is playing in the movie. So Sarah gets captured by Damage Control, and that sets Jean off on this revenge quest to find her sister. And this was the biggest problems I had with this is in the way they handled Jean, and not with Sadie Sink's performance. Sadie Sink's performance was great, especially as we get into the end and her powers are growing and all that kind of stuff, and we really get a better feel for her character. I thought Sink did an amazing job. I'm really looking forward to seeing how she handles it in the X-Men movie, which I assume she's going to be in now. But this idea of Jean Grey as this kind of like, she puts Peter through the ringer in this. Like, at one point she jumps into MJ's body and she makes Peter believe that MJ has remembered. And she kisses Peter as MJ and all this, and it's just like, that is just a very cruel thing to do. And Peter even says, that is unforgivable, and then it seems at the end it is forgiven. So I was kind of disappointed in that. And just like the stuff she does, like I don't think she necessarily goes out and kills anybody, but she comes damn close several times. So I don't know, it's just, I know we're talking about the woman who became Dark Phoenix and all that kind of stuff, but I prefer Jean to be a little bit different. Let's just leave it at that. But all that being said, it is what it is. They're going to make changes, and what they did with it, although I'm not a fan of how it started, I do like where it ended up at the end. So that's that out of the way. And so she is a full-on telepath, telekinetic, although throughout most of the movie, her powers are in a lower state. All she can really do is jump a maximum of about 33 feet and control people from a distance. So she has to be within range of people, but then at the end of the movie, her powers experience a jump start in evolution, and she really kind of pushes them to the max, and then she's able to use telekinesis and telepathy in a way that we hadn't seen before. So that's that part of it. As for the Peter's powers changing, he does get the organic web shooters, and he does have these times where his eyes turn black, but it's not a full-on version of the other story, which is what I thought it was going to be. Instead, that's basically just it. Like his senses get enhanced, and his eyes turn black every now and then, and he has organic web shooters, and that's about it. So I'm not sure if maybe they're going to follow up on that in another movie. I hope they do. I mean, the organic web shooters were fine for Toby, but I really like the idea of the mechanical web shooters. At the time, I was an evangelist for the organic web shooters, but over time, I've come around to really respect and appreciate the mechanical ones. So I hope they circle back to that at some point in the future. Maybe I assume there'll be another movie. This one's probably going to make all the money, so I assume there will be another movie, and in that case, maybe they'll go further into the other story, or they'll do Man Spider or something along those lines. So we'll see how that plays out. The kind of like heightened aggression that is hinted at, that only happens really in one scene. After that, he's pretty much in control of himself, so it's not really a thing to worry about too much. No symbiote. I know some people were thinking like this might be kind of a version of the symbiote story, but no, there's no symbiote, no Venom, nothing like that. The Scorpion is kind of a minor villain in this. Like, he basically only had like 2 big scenes against Spidey, and then he's pretty much off the board. Tombstone just appears in 1 cameo, same as Boomerang. Boomerang's not even named in the movie. The scene with the hand, that's part of this big flashback scene, but then it turns out that those hand ninjas that Peter defeated, Damage Control hired them, so we do see them later on in the movie. Again, in that scene we saw in the trailer. That's kind of like the big climactic scene when he's using his organic web shooters. And it's a very cool scene. It's very well done. But a little bit disappointing as far as the hand goes. So if you're expecting some more of that, it's not really there. The Hulk stuff, again, very minor. We don't really get an explanation as to why Banner isn't Smart Hulk anymore. He just says that he needs this to control the other guy, and he's talking about split personalities again. I guess we can assume that something happened in the years between She-Hulk and this. Maybe had something to do with his son, maybe with him going back to Sakaar. I don't know what the case was, but whatever the case, we don't get any explanation. He does, his transformation at first is because of Jean. She destroys his regulator, and then he transforms, and she's controlling him for most of that fight. So, and then once she jumps out of him, she then jumps into Punisher, and then Hulk is pretty much on his own. He changes on his own, and he starts losing control. Peter basically talks him down, and that ends him. So not a very big part, just basically there for a big throwdown and a big destruction scene, which is well done. It was cool seeing the Savage Hulk again. It's been the first time we've seen him in a very long time. So that part of it was fun. So the MJ and Ned stuff, they don't full on, at least with MJ, they don't full on reverse things. She does find out. At one point she finds out about, she finds Peter's letter, which he wrote her at the end of No Way Home, and he's kept with her, as we saw in some of the trailers. He's kept with him. And while him and Punisher go off to face off against Jean, they leave MJ back in Frank's base, and that's when she discovers the note there that Peter had carried with him, and he left it behind. And so she reads it. She knows all about it. She knows what happened, but she makes it very clear. She's like, I can see why you did it. I can see why she would love you, but, basically that's not me anymore. I don't know you, is what she says. So the spell works. It still works. It's still very much in place. And she's obviously understandably, put off by the whole situation. So there is that aspect of it. But she does come around. He takes her home, and then she invites him to come up and say hi to Ned. There's this really great scene where we see Peter as Spider-Man in full costume joking around with Ned, and when Ned has to go up and leave the room for something, MJ comments on the fact that she's like, you guys really do act like you're best friends, right? She says that connection is still there. And so that is very much present. And then at the end of the movie, he runs into Ned again, and he says hi to him, and then he goes right into the handshake. And at the end of the handshake, Ned goes, Peter, and it seems pretty clear that he remembers now at the end of it. So probably going to have MJ remember at some point as well. She comes around to the idea of him. So I'd say the Ned thing, definitely he remembers by the end. MJ, up in the air. I think it's very likely that she will remember. I was actually kind of expecting that by the end, maybe Jean was going to restore MJ's memories as kind of like a way of apologizing to Pete. but that didn't happen. So, but we do see Jean at the very end of the movie. She's on a bus headed that's driving through like a forested area. So I assume she's going up to upstate New York. She's heading up to Westchester. Is kind of what my assumption is with that. And maybe they will do some past connection with Professor X or something. I don't know. We'll see how that all shakes out. Probably not until after Secret Wars. The surprise cameo. The surprise cameo was Yelena. There's this scene when we also have John DeWolf in there. So he's working with DeWolf. They've got a really good working relationship. He's constantly on the phone with her. And they've got a really nice professional dynamic going. At one point he mentioned that he's going to talk to someone he knows. And who he knows is Yelena. It's this great scene, right? Florence Pugh is just a joy in all these appearances she has as Yelena, and this was no exception. She's in a Russian, her office, so to speak, is just a Russian bathhouse, and so she's literally just sitting in the bath, and she makes Peter take off his clothes and also get in the bath. He keeps his mask and his underwear on, of course, so it's a very funny scene there. She's just got some really nice her banter with Pete was just a lot of fun. She has another scene later on. She gives him some more information over a video call, and yeah, just great seeing her. Wasn't expecting that, but she does make this whole point of saying that the new Avengers, they handle the big potato stuff. Spider-Man, he handles the little baby potato stuff. So that whole dynamic of the Avengers are handling the big league stuff, while Spider-Man is more focused on the local New York stuff. I like that. That is my preferred version of Spider-Man. I don't like the idea of him as an Avenger, not because he doesn't deserve it, just because I like him better operating on that local level as opposed to being this big league superhero. But that's me. I get that I'm now in a minority about that, so that's just something I have to live with. Frank and Peter, their dynamic was just incredibly fun. You didn't feel that Frank was nerfed at all from the PG-13 rating. I mean, he doesn't swear, obviously. At one point, he's about to drop an F-bomb, and that's when Peter, shoots a web over his mouth. But it works. Their dynamic totally works. It's obvious that Holland and Bernthal are just having the time of their lives playing off each other, and so that's a lot of fun. But yeah, no big hints for Doomsday or Secret Wars other than the very last, the post-credit scene. So Ned develops this spider tracker, and it basically shows up every time there's a Spider-Man sighting. It kind of like marks his trajectory and all that kind of thing. So the post-credit scene is the spider tracker, and it says there's a new Spider-Man appearance sighted. And it kind of zooms out. It says the Spider-Man appearance was lost. Keeps zooming out into space, and then it goes off, pans away from the Earth into just like absolute blackness, and it says Spider-Man found. There's just so I assume that's probably Battleworld or something like that, which means again, I don't think there's been a confirmation if Holland is going to be in Doomsday. I mean, he said he's not, but you know how that works out. But I think it's pretty clear that he will be in Secret Wars. So I think that about covers everything in it. It's a fun movie. I really like Destin Daniel Cretton as the director of these. Again, not the hottest on the Jean stuff. That's what takes it down a notch for me, but I am looking forward to seeing what Sadie Sink does with the role. Oh, also, even though Jean has these powers, there is no explicit mention of her being a mutant. They still don't mention the word mutant at all. There's no mention of X-Gene or anything like that, but they also don't mention where her powers came from. So it's just presented as she has powers, and they don't give a reason why. So I assume they're probably saving that stuff for when they get to the X-Men side of things. Anyway, that's my both spoiler-free and spoiler-filled review of Spider-Man Brand New Day. Obviously, at some point, we'll have a guest on the show to talk about this movie, break it up apart in a little bit more depth. But I just want to give you a quick reaction, let you know what I thought. So, hope you enjoyed this. SuperheroCinephiles.com is the website. If you want to get in touch with me, use the contact form. Super Cinema Pod on most of the socials, except SuperheroCinephiles.com on Blue Sky. Feel free to reach out to me on there if you like, although not really on them that much. pulpcorner.substack.com if you want to sign up and find out when my new superhero serial, Pulse Domain, is going to be dropping. Hopefully soon, hopefully within the next few months or so. I've already got about 17 episodes written, so hopefully we'll be able to get that out sooner rather than later. And also, please leave a review if you like the show. Please, leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Even if you just give it a rating, anything you can do helps boost us up in the rankings, helps us find more listeners. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.